Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Donjo number EM-2. This is a, I suppose you might call it a scar plate, or a remodeler's plate, or a protection plate, or reinforcing plate. You can use it for lots of applications. They call it a steel scar plate. Yeah, where you're going to use this is certainly going to be different. Different people will have different reasons for using this. Otherwise, flat plate with the exception of the lip that's returned back here. Okay, this would be otherwise a U-shaped reinforcement plate that would go down to a door, but you may not use a U-shaped style for a particular reason. You may not need to have that. There may not be any damage, assuming that you're taking a door that's been compromised in some way, because generally scar plates like this are not used in new installation. Generally, I've sold material like this to people who are doing new doors and frames, and they knew they were going to need it, so proactively they install the material. But a scar plate like this, when you're not using a U-shaped style, again, maybe there's no damage to the door, or maybe you just have some sort of cosmetic issue on the face of the door somehow, and applying this to the door will make all that work well for you. You might have some sort of a situation where you're relocating a door, a hole in a door. But I would think generally generally it's probably a cosmetic problem when you're using a plate like this. Whether it be rectangular or it be round. When it's called a scar plate, it's probably because you have some scarring on the face of the door, or just some cosmetic issue that you wish to cover, is the bottom line. And why would you use a piece of equipment like this? Well, a piece of cosmetic hardware like this is a lot less expensive than a new door. And you'll find that sometimes I've had people call me with doors that were well over 100 years old. I have someone broke in, the door is damaged, what do I do? And replacing the door is not an option, because to replace that door by today's standards, would be exceptionally expensive. So the access to the door, the cost of the door, or maybe even getting a carpenter to do the work for you, all of that's not realistic in certain instances. I had a client with a lock from about 1970, and that lock was not. That Schlage E-Series grip had been around since the mid-century. Well, the lock after 50 years isn't working really well anymore. You can't get any more of those locks. It's got an unusual preparation in the door. Replacing the door is not realistic. So sometimes you use plates like this to kind of make the best of an otherwise less than perfect situation. So a scar plate like this, generally you would see them installed in pairs, and this client did indeed order 2. It's 9-inch height. The overall width about 4-inch. Let's get the caliper here, and I'll tell you what the thickness of the steel is, of the stainless steel. This is 630 or 630 finish. That means solid stainless with a brushed finish, and peeling away some of the material that's on the front here. Just showing you a brushed finish. Get our caliper onto that area as well. 0.033, so it's a 32nd thick. This client did order 2 of them. So now you're increasing your door thickness by a 1/16 of an inch, so be mindful of that. You shouldn't have a problem with your lock still working in that regard, although it wouldn't be impossible for you to have a problem with the lock. I wouldn't overthink that too much. A 1/16 is not going to be that great of a problem. And I suppose at the end of the day, if you wanted to get real fancy, you could lay your door down and do a mortise. Although mortising a 32nd of an inch is not going to work out really well. Your mortise would have to be a little bit deeper than that. Or you might at least mortise it to the edge of the door rather than surface mount it. I would certainly recommend mortising the edge of the door so that this plate is flush. The back set of this plate, it appears to be 2 3/4. And he's wrong. It's 2 3/8. That back set is 2 3/8. That's a 2 1/8 inch hole. And that hole is going to occur right in the center, or at 5 1/2 inch. Okay, you've got 4 holes. That's for the surface mounting. The screws are indeed included. And this plate is also available in a 605 finish or polished brass. Let's switch to the screen view where we can take a look at the extended description and the supporting documentation of this item. Okay, this is indeed the item that we're looking at. Extended description. Scar plate for door damaged by prying. Yeah, and that, that's the entire premise of why this curved edge is there. Someone's trying to get a bar inside of here and lloyd your lock or otherwise damage your... get in via the latch bolt and damage the door in the process. Fits under one side of door with curved lip. Fits under one side of door with curved lip. So it fits under your lock and it has a curved lip. Fits under a key and knob, certainly. Be mindful that the 2 3/8 is the back set. That hole is 2 1/8. So the overall width of the plate is 4 inch. So 4 minus 2 3/8 minus 2 1/8 divided by 2. That should be 9/16 from the edge of the plate to this hole. So be mindful to measure if that's going to work for you. It ought to, but your lock is probably going to come right close to that. 630 finish, satin stainless steel. It's solid stainless with a brushed finish, and when you buy one, we'll ship you one. Be mindful that you might need two. Not necessarily. If they've only damaged the outside, you should probably only put one on the outside. The template, technical drawing of the item showing almost all the dimensions, does refer to the polished brass and the stainless steel. 032, that's basically what we measured. I'm sure they can powder coat this. They do a dark brown powder coat at Donjo, so if you wanted it to be complementary to oil rubbed bronze, even though it would be just a Duranautic or a dark brown powder coat, they can do that. The product catalog, that's awfully handy because it will allow us to review the EM-2 and its sister products. So I just did a Control F or find function on the keyboard, and they do have the 2 3/4 backset version, which is the EM4, and that plate will be ever so slightly wider to compensate for that. Okay. Now this scar plate is under the accessory hardware section, and what I mean by that is there's an entire door reinforcing wraparound plate section as well, and frankly I probably would have put it there or put it in both places, but there are other scar plates here, and that's probably why they have it here. And these are the scar plates, SP135 with a 2 1/8 inch hole and then an 1.5 inch hole. 1.5 inch hole would be for your deadbolts that were manufactured by Schlage, and they still have deadbolts that go in 1.5 inch holes. Kwikset made one, certainly. So if you have an 1.5 inch hole and you want a scar plate, they have one just for an 1.5 inch hole. Other remodelers plates are here as well. A variety of different function hole preparations depending on the lock that you're installing. This interesting plate here would be for a variety of different manufacturers' lever through bolt template patterns. This would be called a turtle prep sometimes. We would call that a turtle prep. If you use your imagination, you can see why we would call it that. Other plates for different lock preparations. Alarm lock, simplex, Ilco Unican, locks of that nature is why you're seeing these different preparations. A plate like this could be used when you have a lever lock and then you are either blanking off a deadbolt up here, or you might be drilling a new hole in this to relocate a deadbolt, but it's probably where that's being used. You might have gone from a lock and a deadbolt and now you're adding access control. Well, that deadbolt needs to go away, possibly. Accessory hardware, door viewers, chains, elbow catches, coat hooks, edge pulls, window locks, knockers and viewers. Okay, so back to the manufacturer's page. I'd like to point your attention to the manufacturer's page as seen here, and that will allow you to review not only all of the Donjo products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog, but all their subsection catalogs here as well. And that wraparound catalog plate that catalog section I mentioned is here. So if you're looking for ways to mitigate damage to a door, this catalog might be one you need to look in as well. If not for finding something more appropriate, at least for broadening your understanding of the available product line. Okay, a variety of options can be seen here. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, the name Don Joe is synonymous with a variety of hardware that, a complement of hardware that no other manufacturer has the type of diversity that they have. And they do a nice job with their material, there's no doubt. It is reasonably priced, it is of very reasonable quality. The company is, you know, I'd almost call them an old-fashioned hardware company in the sense that you pick the phone up, the person who answers the phone can generally answer all your questions. Where's my order? How many do you have in stock? How do I use it? That sort of business. So I appreciate what they do, and they do a good job at that. I would consider Don Joe as a source for things other than the products that you likely already know them for, which would be door reinforcing plates and maybe latch protectors. But they have accessory hardware that we just went over. They have hinges. They have ladder pulls and pivots. They have flat goods like kick plates, push and pull hardware. They have signage. They have accessory hardware as well. Filler plates for steel doors and steel frames. So a dive into their catalog might be worthwhile because you might say, oh, I never knew I could get that from these people. That's the kind of, you know, distributor that Don Joe is. Any questions on the EM-2 and a 630 finish or any other Don Joe product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.